I'm Rachel Johnson, co-host of the EduGals podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Wow, guys. It's taking a lot to get here, but you are at the next episode of the High Tech Podcast, joined by joined by me.
Yes.
This is failing.
Hopefully you're here.
Yes, I am here. My name is Josh. I am one of the hosts of the High Tech Podcast. That other,
Voice?
silky, luxurious voice you heard, was my great co-host, Will Illingworth.
Great.
William
the Great, I'll take it.
Yeah, William the Great. See, that sounds cool. If I say Josh the Great, it kind of sounds like a guy who's just trying to be a knight. So,
sure.
Kind of failed. Anyway, we're in a new episode. We're super excited because we are having a guest this week.
Yes.
We got a guest. Yeah, and this is the second episode of a series. You can tell we were looking at each other trying to remember. Wait, which one are we doing? No, so if you joined us last week, you know that we have kicked off a series called Learning Designers React, kind of like other React series, except cooler.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, totally. This is our second episode. We are joined by Susannah this week.
Susannah Simmons.
We get into how long you've known each other, but you've known Susannah for quite a while, right? You know?
Yeah, it's a good friendship.
Yeah. So we're super excited to talk to Susannah. A lot of good stuff in this episode that we're going to react to. But before we do our regular spiel, if you're checking us out for the first time or you're hearing us on your podcast app and you're like, man, I wish I didn't just have to listen to these guys through Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or all the other places they are. Well,
all at once.
All at once. There's good news because we have other things. We are on the social, Twitter. That's it. We're only there. Go check us out at High Tech Podcast. Make sure to subscribe and just engage with us. That'd be cool. I can engage with you. We'll post some cool stuff.
Love it.
We got some more plans for some posts coming up this year. And then also, if you don't like the socials, you're like, I still like email. Well, that's okay. We still have that at inbox@hightechpod.us. You can check us out there and shoot us an email. Both of those options are places that you can send fun animal pictures like we ask for every week. And Will, you know what? You got a good picture for us? I'm gonna spring this one on you. I feel like I do it every podcast,
Dang.
and I've had to make a lot of decisions today, so it kind of be cool if
savage.
you just make a different one.
Savage. All right, let's go. I'm all about alliteration, so you just do this for me. Pick a letter. A through Z.
Pick a letter.
Don't pick Q or Z.
Q. I've got one already for Q.
Well, see, the first thing that came to my mind was a Pokemon. So why don't we go with your real thing?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
Okay. A quail being quiet.
See? Nailed it. Thank you. Well, golf clap.
There you go.
Golf clap for you, sir.
There we go. Perfect. Give us a quail being quiet. If you're like, what does that look like? I don't know. I barely remember what a quail looks like. So send us that picture either on Twitter or in our email. And you can also check out our website, hightechpod.us, where we post episode pages every week, including this one. And you'll definitely want to check those out for this series if you haven't already been doing it, because we're reacting to things. And you might have noticed we don't have video. And so a lot of the stuff we're reacting to is visual. So we're going to make sure to post that stuff along with the episode on the episode pages. So make sure to check that out on our website. Whew! With that said, I feel like
we've got it. We've got it covered.
We can move on. So let's go talk with Susannah.
Love it. All right, coming off of our introduction for the episode, Josh and Will are here with
we arrived.
Friend, good colleague, Susannah Simmons. Susannah and I, well, this is Will, have known each other for quite a few years. We were just kind of thinking about that tonight. We were like, wait, how many years? We virtually have known each other for something like 6, maybe 7 years, right? It goes back.
Yes. 2016 at its earliest.
Oh my gosh. And that is because of something you do. What is it that you do?
I am an instructional designer in higher ed. I've been in higher ed since 2017. So been doing that. I came into this profession through, well, IDs come from all different avenues, right? How did we
Cashiers,
get here? Right.
mechanics.
Yes. So I was a sales trainer for a cell phone company, and
Oh wow.
I did not understand why these almighty IDs make the stuff and then send it down to us. So I wanted to get in on the ID action and just create more versus
That's awesome.
Say the same joke every week.
Did you I this is genuine curiosity. I don't have a script, folks. Did you go into ID and actually get an ID job first, or were you interested, you went and got a degree or a continued education and then got an ID job?
I got close enough to know that I needed a master's to go where I wanted to go. So I used the trainer situation to help me get into ID work. And I should have mentioned this too, in healthcare. So we were making simulations for new programs that nurses, doctors, anyone in a hospital might need to learn. And that was where I started. And then I said, if I want to get into the more interesting work, I should get my master's.
When you say simulations, did you do stuff like, put the liver on the body where it should be and like little click and drags, or what kind of simulations?
I wish. It was more like, welcome to this program. Click here to access the patient's file. Click here to da da da. So I quickly got bored.
Simulation.
Yeah, so we made them in Captivate. It was just screenshots, and so they would click, 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 and then there would be
pain already.
Yes, thank you. So I had learned as much as I needed to at that point, and that was a great stepping stone. So I don't want to belittle that learning, but I also then you go into higher ed, and it's like anything and everything can be thrown at you. So the other side of the spectrum of
the first time I was invited to help set up a student's job fair networking experience, I was like, what am I doing? What?
Why? Yes.
Yeah.
How did I get wrangled into this? I don't know.
IDs have all the skills.
Which I would say we do. I do think that our skill set is transferable.
Yes.
We are personable. We tend to be easy to work with. We're very aware of the deadlines and what we're trying to accomplish. So I can see how we end up in those situations.
We're responsible. We're the ones that meet deadlines. Like,
yes,
we're the ones that everyone wanted in the group projects.
Yes.
Except also don't want in the group projects. It's like a mix. It's like a mixed bag. It's like,
I just want to submit this, project, Josh.
But then when you try to give input on the group project, they're like, why are you a part of this group project? Stop it.
Yes, too much. Hey, listen, we're just trying to get a C. Could you calm down? We don't need the A+++. Yeah.
I'm measuring those pluses for my crown. I want to make sure. Josh, you've done some ID, right? Like you're now primarily instructional technology, but you're adjacent.
No, I did a little bit of design before I went and became manager of instructional technology this last year. So, I enjoy that stuff. I'd love to do more of it, but I also like our team that I get to oversee, so that's fun too. But yeah, it's a very interesting. It's funny how so many designers come from so many different backgrounds. It's like the job that like nobody really knows until they're a designer. I feel like everybody in higher ed, they're like we still have a designer on our team that he has a professor who's a friend of his. Like they meet monthly and he still thinks he works in IT. Like that's like, and it's been that way for like 2 years.
Yes. Or your family has no idea what you do. Introduce you as an educator or an IT professional. What else have I heard? A web designer. Just just throw some words at it. 100%. See what sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite is always still the question of like, and you get it every time. I don't know if you get this, where it's like the second the summer hits, it's like there's always this person that I feel bad for them because they don't know the context of what they're doing, but they walk up to me and ask, so everything's like chilled now, right? Because it's the summer, and I want to kill them. That's
Right. I wish I want a summer break too.
Yeah. The when I talk to K-12 folks, they're just like, wait, so you work year round? I was like, yeah. So what do you do in the summer? I continue working.
I continue. The
My
courses
job
take longer than a week to prep. So
Yes. Hopefully, right? If you're doing it right. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not a bad segue for our goal tonight, which is to take a look at some things that have maybe needed a little more time in the oven before they were delivered to students.
Maybe took a week. It depends.
Maybe an hour.
Yeah.
Or 4. Last week, we had the wonderful Wendy's episode thing with Lene, and what a fun conversation that was.
Wendy's has still not contacted us to give me more background on these videos.
Where's the sponsorship? Where's the answer?
I thought that was going to equal Wendy's sponsors the High Tech Podcast. So Wendy's, if you're listening, we're still waiting for that email.
Yeah, hook them up, or at least a free sandwich.
And now for the second half of this episode, sponsored by Wendy's. Hashtag not a sponsor.
I like it though. I like where you're headed.
So we've pulled together a couple, 3. That's not a couple. That's 3 assignments that we've seen over time that have met the mark or missed the mark. And we're going to kind of talk our way through these. I'm going to go, we've all got the screen up separately. So I'll try and MC us through this experience because you all can't see the wonderful world of radio.
But you can check out our website to see them later after
the fact.
Podcast. Yeah. Or
it's like Josh
whatever you want to do, it's fine. You do you, but you should go check it out and do that at the same time. There's my plug. Okay, continue, Will.
Let's go with the final draft. The final draft, ironically, starting first.
That was due to my. Well, I will just say this right now, folks. If you're listening to us to do whatever we do to this, these are definitely just cherry picked, adapted versions of assignments. So I always encourage evaluating. Real assignments. I always encourage evaluating a course in its whole, unless you're doing a podcast where you can't do that. So for this episode, that's what we're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So we've got about 3 paragraphs of text altogether. There's 1 paragraph of in this paper you'll see. There's another paragraph where it's like your completed paper is due by, and then we get the bullet points. I'll start with some positives here. I like that we've got a general overview, first paragraph, a little bit of the logistics, paragraph 2, and then I haven't analyzed it enough to see if there's anything new in the bullet points, but now a 1, 2, 3, like here's what you need to do. Make sure you've checked off these. So that's pretty straightforward. This is a final draft, so not a final paper. That's good. So there's probably 1 more submission after. Well, no, final draft. That's the last draft.
That's usually, if it wasn't, that's the other thing I'm going to tear apart. That it says final and it's not actually the final draft.
Yeah.
That's fair, actually, right? Like there was probably the draft before the final paper, and there's probably a presentation somewhere in there too.
Oh, yes, the infamous paper to presentation experience.
Yes, it reeks of this, which isn't bad. A lot of good comes from the paper. You've done all the synthesis, which they use that word, synthesize the major concepts and principles.
Yep.
Pretty generic though. But
right.
Maybe they're trying to give them choice.
Okay. And sometimes that vagueness is to cultivate student creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes. I'd like that maybe to be explicit. Like, I want you to take this in your direction, but who knows? So, we then first, you got to provide a definition of the humanities. In addition, you must select one of the 4 ecologies of meaning and explain how this discipline allows you to better understand the nature of human experience, right? This is pretty heady. And then we're seeing this as a 3 to 4 page paper. So it's not sounding too far off. So far, I'm leaning in the, if I were to rate this, probably in a B plus A minus range. I'm not too angry at it, but I also don't know if there's like, is this all they get, or is there more supplementary, information besides this? How would you rate it?
I'm with you. I'm hopeful that throughout this course there's been a framework of your maybe getting a partner, or you're starting to think about it. Okay, we're gonna do our proposal, so the teacher can let you know if you're way out there.
Scaffolding.
Brilliant. Yep, some good scaffolding, but just sticking to this assignment. Yeah, I don't think it would take too much to really make it shine. Let's get explicit about, please go whatever direction you want. It is very heady, though. It is very like human experience within the biblical worldview. That's a lot. Right. That's huge.
What does that even
mean?
Humans
have been doing this ever since we've been alive. Maybe not. But maybe fire came first. But
they needed to survive. Then they started thinking.
Right. Maybe eat some food that's more appealing in the meantime. So, yeah, I think this could be cleaned up relatively quickly. It has good bones.
I like that. Good bones.
I mean, it's a house we're trying to purchase somewhere. Those have good bones, right? So I think it has some really good structure to it.
My husband could fix that. That's what you're looking up.
Yes.
Paint that.
Yes, exactly. I can work with this.
I think the one thing I would pick out if I could redo, beyond just some of the stuff you guys talk about, if I could redo a couple things just like organizational in the instructions and things like that. You brought attention to this, Will, but there's like an unnecessary duplication of instructions. Like, so there's like this paragraph where it's basically like it's due in week 7, 3 to 4 pages long, supported by 4 external sources. It kind of gives all the like the nitty gritty
MLA,
stuff, right? MLA, and then it does the exact same thing except bulleted below. So like almost, it's like not that much different. It's pretty close. So it just, to me, kind of unnecessarily makes it more text heavy than it needs to be. Like that paragraph could be cut and you could maybe redo the bullets a little bit instead of duplicating what you ended up writing out. Now I can say, I have the advantage of knowing where this got ripped from. And so I can say, the paragraph, and I've noticed this sometimes in courses, and instructors have a tendency to do this, where like there's an instruction paragraph from their syllabus about the activity, and they just like copy and paste it through the scaffolded versions of the assignment. I'm pretty confident that's what happened here. I think they just kind of like placed that,
slapped it in
each of the weeks. Because the other thing that I think is funny, I know this context, that I'm pretty sure this came from week 7. So it says like it's due in week 7 and you're here in week 7. So like
awkward.
Redundant.
A bit redundant. You should change it to actually talking about the week, probably pull some of that out. And I'd probably add a header or so somewhere in here to break up that paragraph and stuff a little bit, to kind of just give a little bit of white space break to make it
I like you bringing attention to the redundancy. I'm not about redundancy. I would do a one or the other. So here's the question I'd pose to you two. Are you team narrative paragraph or team bullet points?
Ooh.
Since I want both. Redundant. Oh.
Well, like Josh said, strip out that second paragraph, give a better overview, and then go into the bullets, right? Because as a student, you're like, okay, 3 to 4 pages, got it. 4 sources, got it. Like boom, 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 boom.
Give me the numbers, the details.
Yeah, don't make them look for it or have to hunt for it. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I'm like I want a combo of both, because I feel like there's sometimes you get people who wear too much. Like I've seen this before where it's like everything's bulleted. It's like, but some of that stuff, that's not actually like bullets. That's
literally just a paragraph
you made a statement. That doesn't need to be a bullet. That's not. So yeah, I would agree. I think that's kind of my rule of thumb is always this, like, which is, and I've talked about this book before, where the Don't Make Me Think book. We've talked about it on this podcast before, which is kind of a UX design book, and I think like it's at a necessity. Like if I'm writing stuff that's things that are like points about the assignment, I'm gonna bullet point them.
Do you hear those weird noises? I'm so sorry. That's my dog.
I love
You're good.
dogs.
Look, okay, come here, girl. We got to get out of here. Come on.
Oh,
Everybody
that's
out.
fine.
There's 2 of them. I know, but you had such a good point, and there was this weird, like,
I was
I'm glad
hungry.
it-
That was my stomach.
I'm glad it was a dog because I couldn't tell if it was a person at first. I was like, what is happening on the side of the
I'm
screen?
so sorry. So,
You're
but
good.
you were making such a good point. Don't make
It's cool.
me think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I can
yeah.
pick back up. Yeah, so I think if you're pointing out like points, making points about the actual assignment that they need to know, things that are important for them to include, right? Things that you're
Yeah.
looking for, requirements, things like that. That should be bulleted out if you can. If there's steps to what they're doing, that's why we have numbers. Like, use numbers. It's okay. But I think if you're giving kind of more explanation about a topic or concept or kind of the bigger picture of the paper, like that first paragraph's doing, then make it a narrative paragraph. You don't have to bullet that out because that is not what bullets were designed for. That's not really the concept.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree. I think it's funny to see this, that paragraph and then the bullets. Like it's a coin to me. It's like, it's the same information right in front of me. So which one is the better way? I think I stand on the bullet points because if I was the student, I would take that paragraph list and I would break it out line by line and turn it into a bullet point because I want to check that. I want to see that that's my things to do one at a time. It's my it's my end of the program or end of the assignment checklist. Like, all right, did I make 3 to 4 pages? Yes. Did I get boom 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 done?
Absolutely.
Give me the A+.
The page designer in me
Plus,
also
plus,
just
plus,
really
plus.
wants to write like length in bolded right in front of your page should be 3 to 4 pages and like citing in front of the other to kind of just help them pick up that these are the requirement elements that you're looking for, right? That's maybe the only other thing I maybe
you're saying like
that.
at the beginning of the bullet length and then a sentence
then,
it should be 3 to 4 pages.
Pull it off the sentence
citation
short thing. Citation. So even because the way we read web pages so often is it's a scanning kind of movement and people forget about that. But like when people are often reading web pages, you're not looking at in order of the sentence, you're actually kind of like going down and grabbing words, and sometimes we fill in context by what's around it. So having that can kind of help pick that out for them.
I love that.
And that's a really great point because then you're not too far away from a rubric. And when they're done, I just mentioned this today in pedagogy, like if they're done correctly, they're wonderful. And if they're done poorly, they're just a nuisance, right?
Yeah.
So those are the categories that you're looking for, right? This is, are you learning how to cite properly and back up your thinking? The length is necessary. I'm sure there's more in here too of, how are you stating your case? How are you making this a compelling argument?
Yeah.
So you're already halfway there to that rubric, whether you love them or not. I'm a big fan.
I think that the information in a rubric is key. I don't like fall on this hill sort of the. Wow, I'm trying to like mix all of
so many things that you're trying to do there.
I don't die on the hill. There we go. That it has to be like, a table format and all that. But like the actual content of what should be in the rubric needs to be there, I think, for most assignments. Otherwise, you're sending the students on a goose chase. Like, let's not make this harder for folks. They want to learn.
Especially for something like this, if it's a final paper, like this is supposed to be a fairly large thing in what they're doing. There should be some type of rubric that's really there helping guide them and setting expectations for what you want. Because I think maybe that's also what you guys are kind of getting at, some of the heady statements about like proper definition of the humanities. Like there's not a lot of context there to how that fits with the rest of the course. And sure, we're just pulling this, but even as a student, once you've gotten like into week 12 of whatever course you're in, sometimes you need some guidance in trying to help see how does this connect back to what I did in past weeks and things like that. And I think sometimes we underplay the usefulness as instructions for activities to not just be instructions for the rogue things you need in there, like the hard requirements, but actually kind of like helping guide them in thinking through how this paper or assignment connects to the larger topics of what they're doing or connects to something they did earlier in the week.
And as the guy who personally believes that he has carte blanche to wax eloquent under all circumstances due to his sesquipedalian nature.
Wow.
That was flexing. That was unnecessary.
Words and instructions to me. I love them. I'm not I just had a thing in work yesterday where it's like I wrote a sentence, a statement that was going to go out to people that were supposed to be attending a program, and it was blah 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 blah. Context: can you still attend? And the program owner I was sending it to is like, why don't you put the question first and then the context? I'm like, no, I like the context, but I read it's like, you're right. I want them to answer my question. If they need the context, it can be there. And that's what sometimes it takes with these kinds of things, is like deciding. And I think Josh's point points to that a little bit, like deciding what's the thing I need them to see first and make sure that they see. Is it the question? Is it the explicit requirements? Is it some element of the assignment I know they're going to wrestle with as they deal with it, or something like that?
I am in full agreement. And actually, now that you brought that up, why not tie it back? Like, this is the culmination of everything we've been talking about.
Right.
And yeah, just, I guess, what's in it for them? Why are we doing this?
Ooh, a motivation piece.
Yeah.
Yes.
Josh and I were just recording an episode that was dealing with Fink's significant learning outcomes. It's a taxonomy I'd never heard of, and it has a big element of motivation in it. I was like, it's just resonating with me tonight. Like, oh yes, activate their desires, bring them in, engage them, motivate them. This is what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Why not? And if there's an employable skill that comes out of it too, let's be upfront and explicit about it.
Yeah. Or even if it's not, like being very explicit about how this connects into like having them care about what this is and what they're doing. And I'm sure there might be other places in the course. Again, we're cherry picking this off. There might be other places that this is happening, but we see so often that that's not the case. And like, especially in online courses where it's kind of, here's the instructions for your activity and here's what you're doing. But anyway, let's move to another fun one. So we got 3 in here. Let's jump down to the thing titled issues quiz. Now I will say this. I didn't edit that title. That is actually the real title of the quiz. And I didn't do a lot of work for this.
Where are the instructions?
So those are valid question. I don't those were what the instructions were. So yeah, let's talk about this one for a little bit. What were initial thoughts? How might we clean this gem up a bit?
When we were doing some prep before the episode, we were just like, this episode won't be a punching bag, and I think that last one was pretty fair. This, yeah. I don't know.
This is rough.
Yeah,
we just throw you in the deep end. That's issues. Issues is so huge, right? And then it goes into like group experiences. Oh,
and there's three questions, and they're all 5 points. It's not even like this is just a quick like optional quiz or 1 point question quizzes. This is 15 points.
This is substantial.
Yeah. Now I will say, for the sake of this quiz, I did edit out a bunch of questions, so there were probably more questions in here. So we'll give them that fairness.
So it was worth more, is what you're saying.
It was worth more. I will say that. I made an edit for my own sanity that night. Where
Are we talking 20 questions or 90 questions?
I believe there were like 25 questions in this quiz, if I remember correctly. It was way more than 3. I can tell you that. And I will say they were all true and false. So that much I can say as well. So,
that's rough. So it lets you figure out the instructor's, thinking pattern with the true and false, right?
Yeah.
Oh, is it true, false, true, false, true, 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 false, false, false?
Yep.
Or the way they word it. Some people fail. Some group experiences, right? So maybe if it starts with some, that's a false.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's literally the stuff we taught at like my academic, when I had a job in college being a tutor, and that's the stuff we taught the students. Like, no, here's not how to study better. Here's how to figure out the quiz. Here's how to figure out the test.
Yeah.
How to hack the quiz.
Right. Yeah, which is unfortunate. I lament those days, but
That is very unfortunate.
Well, this is all part of it, though, right? And
Right.
if it was many more questions, it was probably more like a final exam, or was it just like a weekly quiz?
It
right?
was so it was weekly. It was a weekly quiz that has
wow.
this level of instructions. I brought the real bad one in for this one. I got to be honest. I may have loaded the deck by putting this one here on purpose. But
to check the list, right? We have a 2-word title. There's nothing. There's no description in the title. We don't have instructions. We have 5-point true/false questions, and it's something like 25, 30 questions. Each of them is like a sentence. And so, one in here is some people fail to become involved in a group process because they may have feelings of fear or being easily intimidated. I mean, that's kind of mostly true and could be false. Like,
right. What's it tying back to?
I don't know.
Theory for group involvement is there has been a biblical religious tone. So are they trying to recruit them? It makes me think of like recruiting people to go to church a little bit. Like, don't intimidate them. I don't know. So many questions.
And there's the opportunity for this question to have like, according to the textbook, according to X philosopher or thinker, or it's just some people fail to become involved in a group process. Oh, do they? I tried last week to join a knitting club and just couldn't make it.
You were too intimidated.
All the knitting needles, they just scare me.
So I'm curious your guys' thoughts, because I feel like this is a common, and maybe it's just the environment I'm in, a common mistake I see like subject matter experts or faculty do when they're building like an online quiz, because this was actually a fully online course. So that's a whole nother thing. I'm sorry. Is they tend to not, maybe this is just me, they tend to not put a ton of instructions with quizzes. Do you guys feel like you notice this often?
Yes. Well, quizzes are hard. A well done quiz is hard, right? And so who knows with your process, you're probably over it at this point. You're like, I got to put a quiz in there now.
Okay.
Get it over with.
Never felt that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, well, and I also think, I don't know if it's like just the nature of how we're all used to doing like tests and things in classes where it's like, there's not like, and there's instructions on those too, but I kind of get the feeling that a lot of instructors are kind of like, they feel like the questions speak for themselves a little bit. And you bring up a good point, Will, where it's like, well, who says this? Okay, what does this connect back to? And I can already hear the argument from the even a faculty member who I'm good friends with, who would say like, well, I mean, of course, it's from the book that week. Well, yeah, but like, how is that obvious, especially for a student in an online course trying to interpret what this is like and what they're looking at? So like, and as much adding, like, those tones in there would be helpful.
As much as we create a sequence in online courses, we all know, and we've all probably done the thing where you just like, oh yeah, I see what I should have done first, but I'm going to try this first, or I'm just going to do the quiz and move on. Or like, this is a true element of online learning where people are not forced to do it unless you're using a system that does prerequisites and makes them get a 80 before they can move on to some other module or stuff like that. But like, most times they're not forced to do your learning modules exactly how you delivered them. And sometimes that's good because you want them to be able to cross-reference or, take a couple steps forwards, be like, oh, I don't necessarily understand something, read back. That's fine. But imagine if a student just did this quiz this week, like they skipped everything else. Like they're going to fail unless they get lucky, because it's just 50-50. It's not actually learning. Just flip a coin, true or false. Let's see.
But so I'm curious, how would it's a tricky one. Off the context of what you two know, how would you tweak the instructions for this quiz? What would you bring in to try to make this a little bit better, right? Ignore that you don't know the full context of what this is actually on, but like, what items do you think, if we were recommending to a subject matter expert or faculty member, like, hey, you should really pull these things into your instructions, what would be kind of the top things you'd look for to throw in there?
Well, definitely what William said. Hey, what's the source? What is the source of this? And you can put that in the instructions and frame it all, so then the questions just fall nicely underneath that.
Yep.
So there was a page that had all the content, I'm sure, or multiple pages. So referring back to this, I want to make sure that you understand these concepts.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I would start.
Yeah, and I think what you could even picture it as is like, okay, in some cases you can't do it this way, but a lot of times, at least in my experience, it's like, okay, this is probably tied to a specific reading, right? Was that reading in any other activity? If it wasn't, then why isn't it just here in the quiz? Like, why isn't the quiz instructions like, hey, read this and then take this following quiz based on these pages that you read, and this type of thing.
I also
just laying out some parameters of what the quiz is going to be like. I think that we underplay
what to expect.
The advantage of doing that. But even just kind of laying out, what to expect in the quiz that you're looking at and kind of the parameters of what it's going to look like.
I'd ask the faculty member kind of this question of, do you want them to use this quiz to demonstrate their knowledge? So you've given them knowledge and you've practiced this and you've given space for this knowledge to be shared and co-created. I've just laid a lot of my learning philosophy out with that statement. And now you want them to demonstrate that they know it, or are you using this to check their reading? Right? Because there's a philosophical question there that can actually really even justify this quiz. If the quiz had the instructions, do this quiz while reading chapter 1, and all the questions help them track through the reading and drive them into core concepts, I would actually leave it. I think the 25 questions, true, false, 5 points each, that's fine if that was a reading check. And maybe that points weren't worth as much, maybe it's weighted differently in the grade book kind of thing, but that wouldn't be bad. I would use that to drive them through their reading. But if this was a summative assessment and not formative, like that's suggesting, that I would want to change the full scope of this. I think it's missing the mark with actually having students demonstrate their knowledge. So.
Wow. That was, I feel like you covered it all right there. You had formative, summative, philosophy. Boom, boom, boom. All right.
Will just has a board up on his wall where he checks off each time he answers a question. Did I get these concepts from instructional design in the... Yes. Also, did I get to say carte blanche at least once? That's the checkbox for him.
Did I use Latin tonight? Did I use Greek tonight?
Was it successful?
There you go.
How many did I make a 5-syllable word? For time's sake, I don't know that we're going to get to go in deep onto the third one, but the third example is a personal case study, and it's like a 300 to 500 word thing. In general, I'm not too against it, but one of the things that stuck out to me that I want to just have the quick conversation on, not the whole thing, but you'll also post this for peer comment in module 3, right? So do this thing, make the artifact, and I'm assuming this is in module 2 or module 1. This is saying we're going to do it. It sounds like it's a future state thing. So do it, finish it, and then post it later, and then you're going to get feedback. I don't necessarily like that separation of like feedback and peer review from like now doing it to later it being polished and done. I don't know. Like, I know there's that's a pretty consistent experience, but I'd rather have folks co-creating that knowledge in the first place, like get them together to make these little personal case studies or something like that. Is that accurate-ish, Josh? Do you know in the context there, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I know it's a pretty common thing that happens at our institution. It was a common
do
practice
this week and then do later next week.
Do this and then post later in the weeks for peer review or whatever it may be. Yeah, I don't know. I agree. I don't like even just from the tech side standpoint, I hate when we have to ask students to like, hey, come here and then go submit over there. And after you're done over there, if you could come back here, it's like, here, come into my house. And then also like, if you could just walk outside real quick and then just like take this bucket that I have. If you could place that in that other person's house real quick, but not for 20 more minutes. If you could go do that and then come back here.
Oh my gosh. Crazy making.
Yeah. So
here, be busy.
And also the select a personal life issue you are struggling with. Like, Yeah, I really want to air that out. You know, like that's
With
intense.
a
Like,
bunch of strangers on a
yes,
forum.
Especially
yes.
if we're in module 2. Like, so let's just hypothetically say we're in module 2 and we're posting in module 3. I've been with these, unless it's like a cohort model, which I don't think it was. I've been with these people for a hot week. I'm not ready to like release this stuff online to all these
Exactly.
hoodlums.
But unfortunately, I do remember from my days supporting similar courses, there are some folks who are just the hardcore overshares. And in week 2, you've got this like treatise on the last 20 years of their lives and what's gone wrong every year that's resulted in the fact that they are in this class today. Like there's, you know, and it's 7,000 words long. Like, yeah.
Yep. Some people are into it and some not so much. So I mean, even just this should probably be in more of a virtual classroom setting.
Sure.
And we all meet, talk,
Conversational.
or branch off and talk to another person and get the visual cues. Are they following your story or are they falling asleep? Like, how much do you want to share in that moment with them? And then a reflection that's private. How about that? And,
I knew colleagues, I knew peers, colleagues. We were undergrad. They weren't colleagues yet. I knew peers in undergrad who would literally just make stuff up for these kinds of prompts. Like, fact check me. You won't. Like,
that's fair.
You don't know. Yeah. I like your point about like a group thing. Like if I was to tweak this, I'd probably think through like either live virtual classroom or could we tweak this as kind of like a scaffolded group kind of thing that they're working with a partner throughout the course, right? And I'd still not put it as heavy in the beginning on module 2. Be like, okay, you guys met last week. Now it's time to spill it all. So I hope it's good. I'd still keep it. I think I'd slowly build up to that, right? But there is something about like, well, maybe this is something they're working together with somebody that they get to know, right? Like maybe this is a little bit easier for them to do this, and because I knowing like how LMSs and things work, that if they're submitting this for peer comment in a later module, most likely it's like a discussion to the whole class, right? So like that's a whole different thing. So if you're able to do like a group, you also will get better content from your students. Like the student's not gonna, they're either gonna make stuff up or they're not gonna share something that would really actually lead to really good development. Because they're not comfortable with it, right?
And where this is not creating a safe learning environment is if you give them this assignment in week 2 and they take it seriously, but they feel like, all right, maybe it's just a limited enough of an audience, I'm going to be fine with it. And you have them bring it back in week 12, big old surprise, not cool. You know what I mean? Like suddenly they have to talk about it again in week 12 with the whole class. It's like, I didn't know about this. I'm guessing based on the last assignment, last assignment and this one, that this is actually probably in like the counseling or like maybe social based class where there's a lot more of this kind of person to person conversation on these kinds of topics, just from my frame of reference with similar courses in the past. I would hope otherwise. And in those cases, maybe they need that general vulnerability or they're working on empathy, driven skills. Like there's reason for it to be so personal. I don't want to see this in an LAN 101 or, even just your general humanities course. Like this is a pretty personal prompt and it's going to be private. I don't know that the students are going to be as happy with it. Just that level.
Well, yes. And I think too, you could keep it personal, or how about like a case study, the same case study everybody looks at, like, let's let it really be that week 2, let's dissect this. By week 12, we're more comfortable and we can get a little grittier.
Yeah. And I think that comes back to whatever the goals are for that activity, right? If this is for them to work through a principle or which because it kind of sounds like they're trying to work through a technique, that type of thing, maybe a case study would be more comfortable. In that type of situation.
Definitely in the beginning of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will just say this, my last thing, and then we can move on to the next. If just people stop saying go here to submit it and not hyperlink. That's not just because I copied it over. That was a real thing. Don't say go to module 3 and not link to module 3. please. Just
Uh-huh.
I say it on the podcast all the time. Just help me out. Make sure you do
Just
that. That's all
Preaching
I
to the
want.
choir. Preaching.
Please.
Yes.
Thank you. Pretty
Mhm.
please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. The usual hard left, brought to you by your project manager du jour, William Illingworth. That's pretty much the Learning Designers React for this week. We do want to make sure, as always, we get into a little bit of an app conversation. And Susannah has prepared something for us. What is the app of the week?
I love to hate this app. Let's do that.
Oh,
I
okay.
love this app. But it also keeps me very on task. So it's Wrike. It's project management. And
Yes.
so we need it. We need to stay on track. We need the deliverables. It's a great way to talk to everybody. I can CC any of the stakeholders, anyone in this conversation. I will ping them and use it very objectively. That's the point. You don't want to get too
Sweet.
personal, but like, here's what's happening with the project, and we are in progress or not. So as far as up above, it's very easy for me to show my director where I'm at. And that's the goal. Just kind of look down on all the projects. Okay, these look good. This one is a little flagged. Okay, how do we get it back on track? So I do love it, but project management is a bear, and that's why I say love to hate.
It's a drain. It's a task.
Yes.
Not to be too artificial, but like we've made actually episodes in the past on like Notion and similar tools that like there's an educational case for it too. You're using it as an instructional designer to make courses that go into academics, but there's probably ways where not only project management focused curriculum, but like group projects and stuff could use Wrike. You know, like it's probably simple enough to pick up. Would you agree? Or is this one that's more complicated?
It is more complicated, and I'm stepping into it where they have already set it up. So it took a ton of thinking,
you're lucky.
and I am very lucky. So I shouldn't even complain, right? Like I just get to step into the process that they've thought deeply about, but we are always tweaking it too. It's never quite done.
Yeah.
Uh,
There are some free versions. It is a freemium product, but I bet there's going to be limitations. Now, you have this across your institution, so you can, I mean, could you ping the president? I mean, not literally, but could you?
I could. Right now it would be the dean. So if I really wanted to, I could. I tried to not go there. I don't want to go to there. But if needed,
like a good time to send a GIF to the dean. I feel like that's a good solid.
Yes.
Out of the blue, you know?
Yeah, this project's on fire. Smiley face, you know. If you didn't know me, now you know me. So
yeah, now you do. There we go. That's all you need to hear. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So,
that's I've not used Wrike myself, but that's I've heard a lot about it. I've heard a lot of people who end up liking it. So that's cool.
It's a commitment, but once you get it going, it really is a very helpful tool.
Yeah. That's like the tagline of all project management. It's a commitment, but once
once you get it,
I started up with one. I started up with one at the beginning of the year, and I think I made it like 5 months, and I'm no longer like. But I was doing it alone, and there's something to that too, where I think project management software really does need accountability. It needs other people engaged in the process, or why give yourself the burden of that documentation if no one's looking?
Exactly. And the buy-in, you got to have the buy-in across the different departments. And ideally, anyone at any time could look in and see where a particular course development is at a given time.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think we've got a whole episode more today. We didn't even, we tried to pitch Susannah of like, it's just like 30-40 minute thing. Here we are at 45 minutes. Thank you for hanging on with us.
Absolutely. This has been fun. I have not geeked out like this in such a long time. And you're reminding me why I chose this profession in the first place. So it's been nice. Thank you.
Love that. Hey, mechanics and janitors and pastors out there, you too can be an instructional designer. All of us have come from something.
Yes, you can. And please, that just makes it all the more interesting in our field.
Diverse perspectives. I think that's one of those things about ID, like the instructional design field. Like every designer is coming from something and has not only kind of the technical or learned knowledge, hopefully from maybe some studies in philosophy, but like just how I see the world impacts how I want to improve designs. So it's a very beautiful thing that way.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Susannah. Thank you so much. We are going to wrap up the episode in here just a moment, but until then, please hold with us, my listeners.
My listeners, huh?
Oh gosh.
My listeners?
Oh gosh.
It was very possessive.
We literally got off of that call and I instantly regretted what I said. But then I said that to Susannah and Josh and they were just like, "No, keep it. It's going to be great." Yeah.
I love my listeners.
They're not yours, Josh.
They're
yours.
not. I do. Will owns you, people.
I take responsibility and ownership for all high-tech podcast listeners, all three of you.
That's dangerous.
Thank
I know all three of you. I know a few of the people who listen to us, and that's a
thank you,
dangerous
Robin. Thank you, McFalls.
Robin. Thank you, my wife occasionally.
Oh yeah, she was texting us this week about it. So clearly.
Yes, she apparently was very angry. Anyway, Susannah, well, this is awesome. I feel like the running pattern every time we have somebody from Pedigo Me on the podcast is like, Will's known him forever, and Josh is like, I sort of open Pedigo Me.
I've seen their names before.
Yeah, I've seen Susannah post stuff a lot, so it's really cool to like put a face to the Slack name in our PD group.
Yeah, and I really want to thank Susannah for taking the time with us too. Like I could tell, and I see this all the time in the Pedagogy professional group, which she was a part of founding, which we met. She didn't mention. I forgot to mention earlier, but she founded it.
It's fine.
She's awesome. She brought such a positivity to the process, right? Like, we weren't trying to like sit there and rail on anything or hit this stuff hard, but she was like, while critical, trying to focus on the fact of like what was done well, or if there was something done poorly, not to sit there and like slap it over the head, but like, hey, like they could have done that better. Dude, Susannah, would you be my boss? Like that sounds fantastic. I could take that criticism and feedback from my boss if that's how it was done. So.
Yeah, she was very positive about stuff, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, she brought up a lot of good points, about the different activities we're looking at. Again, she acknowledged, and I think we both did, that we're just kind of like pulling things from stuff. So it's not entirely fair. We're not looking at the entire course. Like the final paper thing was like we weren't able to look at the scaffolded elements and things like that. Right. But she did bring up a good point of just like, there's like a lot of really heady statements at the beginning, but like no real explanation further of what that's supposed to be. And maybe that got unpacked in the course or not, but she does bring up a good point of like, even if it did and the assignment was scaffolded, like that component could have been explained better. Because even when you get to that final part, it's probably gonna be hard for the students necessarily to fully make connections of like, okay, this is what he means when they say this, that type of stuff. So like being more detailed, and then also her mention of just like, and I've thought about this before and in stuff that we've been doing, but the stuff she was mentioning even about the quiz of being like, okay, it's mentioning this stuff, but like, where's that stuff from? Like, is it from the book?
Right.
Okay, so like maybe the student can assume it, but
what's
like,
the context?
But yeah, is it like based on your opinion? Like, and some of the questions, the way they were worded, kind of being very both type of options. Right. Like, it's like sure, true and false. I don't know.
Well, and like. You kind of brought up the point and reiterated that idea on the final draft. Like, okay, we're not seeing this in the course we're not seeing this in the context of the course. So we're not seeing what the first draft was like and the outline step and if there was peer review or that kind of stuff. But at the same stroke, like that quiz, if that's the only quiz we're seeing that's representative of the rest of the quizzes, like it's almost a bigger problem. In one sense, it's like, oh, we can give a little pass here to the paper because we're not seeing the full scope of that assignment over weeks and weeks. But if the quiz was representative of all the types of quizzes in that course, like, that's not good.
Yeah, no. And that's what, and hopefully as you guys are listening to this series, our goal is not to just like rip stuff apart. Our goal is to, I think, part of our goal was we were like, we need an idea, and React seems cool. And the other part of the goal, I think, as I've been working through this, has been like, I think a lot of times faculty can get not confused, but like unsure about how to use instructional designers and like what their placement is. So like the point of this being is like a lot of your instructional designers are looking at things from a different angle of not just like, yes, okay, we're focusing on scaffolding and breaking things up and trying to help you figure out how you take what the students need to know and the activities you want them to do and make it work in digital format or whatever format they're working with you in. But the other part of this too is just like looking at gaps that students need when they're coming to a type of learning experience.
Yeah.
And like as instructors, the regular day-to-day, a lot of you guys aren't necessarily, and this isn't a bad thing, you shouldn't have to, aren't thinking about all of those little details about like, well, if I write the instructions this way or I don't give these details in an online or hybrid learning environment, it's going to be more difficult.
Yeah.
So just stuff like that, it can be a little bit more difficult in the way we deal with it.
And that's, you know, our value add. We're here to try and help with that process. And like the other side of it is like, if it takes you, let's say 5 hours to write one of those quizzes that is just detailed and all these thoughts from the lecture and all these thoughts from the quizzes. Like I knew a faculty member who really took a lot of time every semester to like update his quizzes, change his quizzes, write new questions, you know, keep it relevant to where he was. You know, if he got ahead of himself, you know, pull some questions from future quizzes backwards. If he was behind on his lectures, you know, take out questions that he hadn't got. Like that's a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
And so like the instructions probably feel like the least important thing because you need to have the assessments. The questions need to be there. That makes sense. Well, hey, we can write instructions. Like there's nothing wrong with an ID being that much a part of your process. So I don't know. I like this. I like it. I recognize some of the assignments. I think that there's some. I've seen not only those assignments before, but like similar ones, and it's representative of a lot of the things we can work on across hybrid and online learning. I don't think it's like I don't think any of them was the end of the world or like would have killed the course, right? But they definitely could be improved and could have made the course that much better.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
All right. Well, this is episode 2, Learning Design Reacts. Pretty excited to see what's going to come next. Next episode 71. Josh and I are going to actually wrap up the series and tackle it ourselves. But we're going to introduce an app that we are pretty excited about. You're going to hear
I'm pretty pumped about this one.
A lot more about Soundtrap in the next episode, of course, but there's going to be a whole new feel to the podcast for us because we're taking on Soundtrap. We're going to try it out. As always, find us on Twitter at HighTechPodcast. You can send us emails at inbox@hightechpod.us. And you can head to our website, hightechpod.us. Same thing as .us. It's the same thing.
Nope.
.us, .us. It's the same thing.
US is a country, us is people. There's a difference, okay?
It's great. Each of our episodes is on there. We provide a resource page that Josh designs and makes look beautiful. We love the website. Thank you so much, Josh, for all the work you put in that. Until next time, thank you again for joining us for another week as we continue to learn what it looks like to harness technology in the classroom, whether it's online or in person. See ya.
See ya.